this whole place actually might be seen as a game changer, not just for Sydney and Australia, but there's something about the sort of vibrancy and the flexibility that we're seeing these office floor plates driven by minimum net to gross and all these really important things, and to see how they're adapted and made into real working environments. Interestingly, how we arrived at this concept for this building didn't happen immediately. It took a very long time. The starting point, interestingly, was way back, probably about 8 years ago. Actually, probably even longer than that. From left to right on this image, starting off with the standard model, the core in the middle, a bit of office space around the edge. The first thing that everyone realised here is we had to do something different. So let's move that core off the edge. And at the time we were talking about how can you then get a greater community spirit in the whole place, not just building to building.
The spirit in which you designed the building was something that Liam translated very, very early on to us as we were coming on board. How would we continue that spirit in the way that people were going to be together? What would it take to create an environment where people wanted to be? What would it take to create an environment where the spirit of the people represented the spirit of the place? But this sense of one team was really important. This sense of how could we create an environment where people felt they were part of a legacy? That I wasn't just coming and doing my job. I felt like I was looking after place on behalf of history and on behalf of future. As that sort of journey went along, we started to distill what that culture would be like. And we created a service culture brand, if you like, and that brand was Barangaroo. And so at Barangaroo, this was all about Barangaroo, and which was our way of helping you, the way that we would see people, not just our jobs, not just be stuck in this is my job or this is my task, but actually I would see people and I would see how people would interact.
Firstly, thank you for a building that has no hierarchy, it has no demands, on us in terms of creating a very bureaucratic space, the one that can allow people to be their best and to not enforce paradigms of, old workspace thinking and corporate kind of behaviours. So that's been really refreshing, and it doesn't happen very often. That leads to one of the poignant moments and an epiphany I think we all had, the whole team had, a few months ago, when after a number of workshops we'd had, which all focused on human behaviours and understanding what working means in the future and where the pain points are and what people are challenged with and how that might transform, into what we can do to help the experience of work be better. We came a day of a team workshop and Liam was standing in front of us having a little chat, and all of a sudden there appeared out of his hands some pieces from his children's blocks at home that he'd pinched, and he suddenly brought to life what we needed to do, and the blocks represented, old thinking around buildings and fitting tenancies and organisations, within the structures of buildings, within organisational structures. And so he just said, we're not going to do that anymore. We've got a new way. And then he appeared with this glass jar of bars he'd nicked out of his laundry cupboard, and he filled it with water, and then he proceeded to spill marbles into it. And at this point we're completely, not sure where this is going and what our task is. So he said these marbles are people, and this is the beautiful building that we have. And the water's the space in the building. And so we've got all these people. And so we're getting that and getting this sense of what's happening here. And then he brought out some sprinkles and he proceeded to sprinkle, not just one, but a number of coloured sprinkles. And he said, so these are the things that will hold our community in our spaces together. And he said, but that can't happen on its own, or the sprinkles will just stay sitting on the top. We have to keep shaking it. And so for the sprinkles to fall and to actually immerse themselves, that was all about the culture that we were going to create. And what might it be that all of the people within the buildings, the beautiful buildings that we have, what is it that's going to help them to feel as one community? And so following on from your story and the whole, the ethos around what you wanted this to be, it became our job then to look at how we might create environments that could actually enable people to be a new type of person and to have a new experience at work. And the sprinkles then became the ethos of what the Carpe Diem and the community is. It became a set of values that all of the tenants now, will have and share to be part of the community. And it means then that in our spaces, we get to play with a lot more flexibility, and it's way beyond agile working.
The thing that knocked the semi-detached office buildings wasn't the idea, because everyone was generally pro the idea that of course you benefit from being in environments with people you don't normally mix with. It was actually all about funding. It was the fact that you couldn't partition the building and say we can sell that piece with a piece of turf beneath it. It was actually ultimately not felt by the idea of community. It was something slightly more sort of prosaic, unfortunately.
Obviously the key word, whichever is used, is community. And I think that's really the critical thing. And what we've tried to do is to break through the idea of compartmentalization and isolation, and rather contact. I have very strong memory when I was about 4. I was born in Italy. And looking out of the apartment I was in, the flat I was in, and looking across, there was a cafe. And every morning, a waiter would take out a table and put it out on the pavement, and a lawyer would come and sit at that, and people would come to see him on the pavement. I thought, that's what I want to do. Not a law, but I want to be able to sit on the pavement, using the pavement as a community. And by the way, one of the most surprising things, one of the most delightful things, the most delightful thing, let's start with that, is all of you. I think it's been fantastic. I have never had such an impressive lot of people. Either you've all been brainwashed, or you actually feel, or you actually feel, it's a cult. Either I'm in a cult, or it's immensely, wonderfully warming to see that everybody is sharing. I think this is a really, really important thing. It's wonderful to be on the pavement. You start outside, it's full of life, yet, half of the buildings are occupied. This is just the beginning, yet it is really very, very fulfilling.